What is up, my Shadowverse soldiers, and welcome back to another Shadowverse Evolved video. Alright, so we are finally here with the rune breakdown of set 5, and what rune breakdown we're going to be doing, we're going to be talking about Lishenna. And if you don't know what Lishenna is, she is a control deck that's going to be figured around the Destruction in White and Destruction in Black. If you don't know what those cards are, we'll definitely talk about them in this video, but if you do, then they're pretty good cards, but really establishing them is going to be the hard part. But let's go ahead and talk about the goods and the bads of Lishenna control rune. Alright, so getting into the pros, it has decent burn, decent heal, and flexibility. The one thing I can say about rune decks is that you can put whatever cards you need for whatever situation. Like if I need to draw cards, I have Fate's Hand. If I need to heal, like in Concentration. There's lots of options you can choose from spells. But getting into the con side of things, there's the setup. It is a rune deck. The board space, removal, late game, and then draw power. Alright, so you guys are probably looking at me a little crazy when I say removal and it's rune deck. So in terms of just the Lishenna control cards, there's not really much removal. There are damage cards, don't get me wrong, but they only do maybe 2 or 3 damage. That's why we have to put in Witch Bolt so they can deal 5 damage, or even, you know, Execution sometimes, to put in some hard removal cards, because the Lishenna control cards aren't really too strong in terms of removal, but it does have decent burn and decent heal on some of the cards, so that really kind of makes up for it sometimes. But the biggest factor that I probably should have put at the top of the cons list was the draw power. So the one thing that this deck doesn't have is any draw power. Usually in Rune, when I've played the deck, there's just like cards that usually essentially replace themselves, or there's a way to get a card back into your hand with the card that you played, or generate some really good value. But enough about the pros and cons, let's talk about Lishenna. So she's the 4-cost premier that came out in this recent set. So Destruction in White and Destruction in Black is the cards you're going to be playing out with this card into your EX area. And Destruction in White heals you for 2, while Destruction in Black deals 2 damage to the enemy leader. Alright, so the one thing you're going to have a problem with when playing a Lishenna deck, or any rune deck that's just going to have Lishenna in it, is playing Lishenna on 4 and then feeling like you didn't do anything. Well, that is the truth. You really didn't essentially do anything. But in my recent playing, I've learned that you can play Lishenna on 5, at least playing her on 4, and then playing the Destruction of White in for 1 will also help, because you can get that 2 health from whatever you did that previous turn. Sometimes your opponent has some storm cards, you know, we'll have to take the hit, but we'll be going to 6 play points, and we'll have a lot of play points to play with, and potentially having 2 idle cards on the field to do some other effects. But disclaimer, this is in a perfect world, and you know, Rune does not live in a perfect world if any of my Runecraft followers are out there. Okay, so enough about Lishenna, let's talk about the idle lottery cards. So these are all the idle cards that came out for the set, besides the one card we'll be talking about. So we have Destructive Refrain, which is one of the cards we're going to be using to just go ahead and search out Lishenna and get the card out and put it into our hand. While it does have a secondary ability to board wipe for as many idle cards out on the field, most of the time your cards are going to get removed, so you should only expect the 2 token cards that are on the field. And if your opponent responds to the token cards, that's honestly good for you too, because if they respond to a token card that essentially is just healing you and burning you, then they wasted a lot of play points getting rid of a card, because there's only a limited amount of cards that can get rid of token amulet cards. Alright, and we have the quick spell Monochromatic Destruction, so it's going to deal 2 damage to an enemy follower. And then if you have both the tokens on the field, you're going to be healing 2 and dealing 2, so you're going to be doing what the amulet does in a quick spell. Alright, and then there's Servant of Destruction. So this is one of the cards that's going to be in the cons for the setup, but I believe this is probably the strongest card in the set for the deck. So we have Servant of Destruction. If there are 3 idle lottery cards on the field, you change this evolve cost to 0 for the rest of this turn. And then on evolve, you select the enemy follower on the field and deal 2 damage to it and its leader. So just a bit of a PSA, Servant of Destruction does count himself when he's played in his fanfare, because it does check all the cards on the field, and he is on the field when his fanfare goes off, and he is not a lottery card. So his evolve becomes 0, he's able to deal 2 damage to an enemy leader, and then 2 to a follower, and then he has an amazing evolve because he's a 2-cost that turns into a 4/4. But yeah, this card is just very strong. It turns to a 4/4. It's going to be doing 6 damage in total if it's able to swing in the very same turn. But you do have to watch out, because Surefire Bullet is a thing, especially if you're going to be worrying about the fanfare effects of having those 2 token cards out on the field. And the only way you can get those token cards on the field is post turn 4. And you know, when you play those little followers like that, you're going to be losing hand size. But you do get to evolve for free and have a 4/4 to swing into something, and then dealing 2 damage to a follower and their leader. So I do want to give an honorable mention to Disciple of Destruction. This is a card that's kind of good in the idle deck. It's just hard to play him. He is a ward card, but you do get to draw too, so that really helps out the deck a little bit, because the one thing that you don't really have in this deck is like much draw power. That's why we have to put it in the form of spells. But Disciple of Destruction isn't too bad of a card. It's just not something we'll be running in every Lishenna deck. Alright, so Lishenna and Idols are as nice as it is, but we do need some late game for this deck. So we have Dark Angel Olivia. That's one of the cards that I was honestly considering putting in the deck. You can get a lot of things. You can get an evolution point, you can heal 3, draw a card, help you with that problem, or you can make your opponent discard a card. So the flexibility of Olivia is just pretty good, especially when you have a turn and your opponent doesn't play anything, or you've used up their resources and they don't have a really good hand, and you have 5 play points. Then just play Dark Angel Olivia. That's not a bad thing to do. You heal 3 on top of the 2 you already heal for your turn. If you have your idol card set up with the tokens, you can draw a card, you can gain an evolution point, you can make your opponent discard a card if their hand size is looking low. Just the flexibility of Olivia is just absolutely wonderful. And then moving on into Lucifer, so this is a card that has multiple purposes. It's really expensive to commit to a play, but you can also ward and then heal. He has Bane on his Evo, and then you can burn along with the token cards. These cards just really resonate very well with the token cards, in my opinion, just because they have the flexibility of, hey, I need to hang back, let me heal, or hey, I need to be aggressive, let me burn them. And then we have Israfil. So I believe Israfil is probably the best card as in late game you can play. You heal, you deal damage to the board, you swing on a follower, and when she's evolved, she's at 10/10. So I believe this is probably the best late game card you can have. But if you are feeling super spicy, you can use Merger Bane, Omen of 1. So this card really essentially works if you have 2 or less cards in your hand, or just essentially 0, and then evolving him with the Enlightenment card to make him super big, being able to swing into an unengaged follower, and then dealing damage to both your opponent's face and to the board. And alright, here's something to consider. So we have Gillan Omen of Craving. So it's a card that came out in this most recent set, a premier neutral, I'd say, absolutely beautiful. Her fanfare effects are just kind of weird. So both your opponents need to be on 10 play points for her natural 10 play point play to draw 3 cards, and whenever you play a neutral card, deal 1 damage to each enemy leader. That's very nice. But you have to remember that both players need to be on 10 play points, and then decks that are on 10 play points are just absolutely scary. And when you're playing this card on 10 play points, and if you spend the extra 3 to search your deck for the Apostle of Craving, it just feels kind of lackluster when you play this card. But don't digress, because if you're a casual player and you want to play cards that you want to play, this is not a bad card. Don't get me wrong, it's not a terrible card. It's just not something we want to do in terms of getting to a very late game and being impactful. Alright, so let's get into some tech cards. So if you want to make this deck absolutely any better, so we have Surefire Bullet, Concentration, Rhyme Wind, Erd, and Execution. Well, we're going to use Surefire Bullet to go ahead and get rid of those pesky Evolve followers, while Concentration is going to heal us and draw a card. Rhyme Wind keeps those, unevolved followers in check that are going to be swinging that very same turn. I'm looking at Dragon there. Erd is going to keep Egg Haven in check, even though Egg Haven is definitely going to wipe the floor with you, because every time you play a follower, it's just going to get removed in some sort of way. And then we have Execution to, sometimes if you're going against the mirror match, getting rid of the deal 2 damage card can remove the, I'm on a timer card. Or if you need to go ahead and just spot removal something, that's also nice too. Alright, so we are finally in the grade of the deck, and before we get into the grade, let's go ahead and look at a sample deck list that I created for Lishenna Control. Alright, so quick disclaimer, I want to say that this is just a template. This is something that'll just get you running with the Lishenna deck. The idle cards are very nice, so they're just a good, just cards just put in 3 of each. Besides the Destruction Ward guy, I can't remember his name anymore, but this deck is pretty solid. I definitely haven't tested it yet, but I believe you can definitely, just rock this and then play around with the cards and the ratios and what you need. So what I really focused on in terms of like the spell cards and just what's in it is the, surviving the aggro. We have the Bell Ringers, we have the extra Angelic Snipe, the Lamplets and stuff like that, Europa. That's the one thing I personally don't enjoy playing against is aggro, and just trying to survive is just something nice. But if you're playing against aggro, I do not believe your friend or whoever's playing against you is trying to play friendly. They are trying to wipe face with you. So this is definitely a casual friendly deck. I just recommend this is what I have for against aggro. I have Israfil as the late game card that I want to use because she wipes the board and then heals you along with the idle cards. We are rocking the One of Truth's Adjudication just for the flexibility of a spell card that you can use in the later turns with Merlin, and then dealing extra 3 damage if you need to. Fate's Hand to help with the, draw on your opponent's turn, draw 2 cards at their turn, and then draw your card for your turn when you get into turn 3 if you're against one of those decks. But one of the cards that I do want to focus on is Freshman Lou. So not many people use this card. This card is going to be helpful getting Lishenna, the Lishenna Destructive Reframe card out. So I'd rock her, just at least 2 of her, just so you can see her before, Merlin, if anything, because you don't want to search Merlin out for the Destructive Reframe card, because it feels really bad to do it, because you're going to be, playing Merlin on 3 just to get the Destructive Reframe card out. They're going to get rid of Merlin, and you're like, okay, well, I didn't get the Evo with my Merlin, so I'm down to just 2 Merlin Evos. So I want to use Freshman Lou instead to get this card out. You can play it a lot earlier. If you're not against aggro, it feels good, but if you are against aggro, you just do need to feel better in just, playing get rid of the aggro cards out. So this is the sample deck list, play around with it. Let me know in the comments below if you I wouldn't say stole, but, used the deck list and had some success with it, because, after I played it a couple of times, I tore it apart, and I'm going to be building a new deck. Alright, but getting back into the grade of the deck, so what we learned about Lishenna Control is that she's not very good early game, but for mid game, you're going to be doing some setup, and getting into the late game is going to be pretty nice, because you're going to be healing 2 and dealing 2 to your opponent. You just need to figure out how you're going to do some board control for removal, draw cards, and just getting your hand size into a very healthy state, because, once you're playing those cards, you're not really adding any cards to your hand. So Merlin's just a good addition with the deck that I had, and then we have Fate's Hand to just, plus 2 cards on your opponent's turn since it's a quick spell. Just very nice cards. But if I were to give a grade to this deck, I would definitely give it a C. It is not the strongest deck out there. I believe this is like locals friendly. I wouldn't say put this mess in locals when we're going to put it into the tier list, but it's definitely a tier above that. I probably like C tier, D tier is where it's at. It's not very strong, but if they have more idle cards that do more effective things, then I would definitely put it in a higher grade. Well, alright guys, that is the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. You don't know how much it means that you're still here watching my stuff. I want to go ahead and let you guys know I am still working on the Patreon. I'm definitely uploading the videos and just working on them right now as we speak. As I'm uploading this, I'm working very hard to put at least 3 videos out, and a special exclusive video to just say thank you to all you guys for supporting me, and then, supporting the Patreon if you're doing that. I love you guys absolutely, and nobody can replace you. I love playing the card game, and I love giving you guys this information as best as I possibly can. Well, alright guys, make sure you're safe in whatever you do tonight, and safe whatever you do for the rest of the year. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.